argue it.
It's
We could argue it all day if we
probably
wanted to.
it's probably the right call. I just don't like the rule.
I hear you. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. And I can agree with you on that. I don't really like the rule either. But
Yeah.
in
It's
the rule book, that was a penalty, and it should
it's
have
like
been
the
called
cat
right there.
it's like the catch rule. Like in my opinion, if you get your both hands on the ball, you secure the football and you get 2 feet down, it's a catch. If somebody hits you and you drop it, it's a fumble. That's the way I would want the rule to be enforced. That's not the way the rule is.
There was one real close last night
I
too.
I know. It
Was it
was
Boston Scott
it was
or
one of
was
the
it Miles Sanders?
it was one of the
Philly
Philly
was.
receivers. I don't remember who it was.
They went to catch the ball, and then as soon as they turned, they got popped. And
Yeah.
man, I mean, it's one
It's
of
what
those where full live action, it looks like a fumble, in my opinion.
yeah.
And then you slow it down, and you're like, well, he barely had just caught it, and it's like, I don't know. It sounds like it's a little backwards, but no, that's how I
Yeah.
felt. I felt like it looked more like a fumble live than it did slow mo. But
Yeah. And that would have been a second defensive touchdown for the Chiefs too.
right, so that would have been an exclamation
Wild.
point almost.
But it's just that using that as an example of the it was called correctly, but I don't like the rule. I don't like that rule either. I
Right.
feel like it's, a catch when when you see it, you know what it is. And that's one of those where it's like, that's a catch. It just is,
It was
in
a
my
bang bang
opinion.
play. It definitely was a bang bang play, but I mean,
Like it's
sometimes they got to
not
go the
like he's in the
offense's way.
air.
Or D-
Not like he's in the air catching the ball and he's got possession, but he hasn't gotten feet down or anything.
right.
Like if you're able to catch, plant, turn, and then get hit,
I'd say that's a football move.
I
I
think it's a
agree.
catch.
I'm
Now
with you
he
there.
didn't do a full turn, but why do we need a third step? It just doesn't make
Right.
sense to me. It
No.
doesn't make sense.
The field was terrible.
Yeah, the field looked awful.
So apparently, so the USGA, which is the United States Golf Association, worked with the NFL to develop this new real natural grass field. What I don't understand is why would you choose the first time to ever use it be
To
the
be the
Super
Super
Bowl,
Bowl.
the most important game of the season?
Well, it's because the Cardinals didn't make the playoffs, so they weren't able to test it.
Well, from what I've heard too, that they were both teams were practicing on said field ahead of time. They
Which,
had all the halftime practices on said field ahead of
yeah.
time. Like it just sounds like they completely dropped the ball on that, and you could tell like they were even showing it on the broadcast. There were multiple people that were changing cleats, and like
Mhm.
there was just a pile of cleats that people were taking off, and that's just sad.
Well, and
That was a bad look.
I don't know if it's a Phoenix thing or what, but like I was listening to Ryan Russillo today, and he was talking about um back in the day with when the national championship game that Cam Newton played in. So it would have been 2011 or whatever,
2010.
and yeah, so somewhere in there. That was like the worst field conditions he'd ever seen, and that was at that same stadium.
I mean,
And I know it's a different surface and all that now, but it just kind of seems like like I don't know. I feel like you'd want
I
to do
wonder
your
how
homework
many
first.
real grass fields we have because that's the one where they literally have it outdoors and then they wheel it in to play on. I don't know if this new one that they worked with the USGA to make was like that, but I know that's what they used to do in Phoenix. Was they had a real grass field, and the way they were able to keep it in a stadium was they had it like they had a system where it wheeled out and it was kept outside of the stadium and then wheeled back in. Like insane.
It seems like there's a
Like
better way.
right.
Like
So
it's a lot of hassle.
I'm actually
It's a lot
curious
of
how many
hassle.
fields we still have that are natural grass. Because I mean, I know I kind of in a way prefer it over turf.
I
However,
doubt
if you're
it.
not able to maintain it well and it's doing what it did in the Super Bowl, you can't play on it.
I bet some of the actual outdoor stadiums still have real grass. It's just a different
Like
type.
Tennessee,
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't know.
Tennessee still has grass. I'm trying to think
Especially
of the ones that you can actually
like
see like the paint when they get
right
tackled and shit.
in like mild climates and I don't know. It was fumble. It was definitely fumble because that
Yeah,
was awful.
it was kind of embarrassing how much they were slipping. Like on one play, literally like four guys slipped, and it's like,
Yeah, and even the kicker on a kickoff
yeah, that's right, and
flipped.
that's
Almost
really dangerous.
almost broke his damn ankle.
Yeah, they could have done a lot of things to his leg. That's your plant leg, and oof, that sounds
Yeah,
painful.
yeah, yeah. I remember spraining my. I guess it wasn't my plant leg, but spraining my push off leg
Ooh,
when
yeah.
when pitching like that. That was awful.
Ugh.
I have sprained my plant leg before in high school. It's not fun.
Nope, that doesn't sound fun. Oof. Before we start talking about maybe a few commercials, because I do want to mention a few of them, just because there were some fun ones, and I know you said you saw some. Um, I did want to talk a little bit about Mahomes. So,
Yeah, let's do it.
Super Bowl MVP,
Second time.
league MVP,
Yep. Second time.
first MVP in the last 10 tries to win the Super Bowl. Do you know who I actually have a list of there's 11 guys that have won MVP and the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Do you have a guess of who the last one was? I'll go there
The
first.
last one. So it's 0 for 10 before this one, right? You said. So
Right,
that
and
means
that's
it's
the
pre.
MVP playing in the Super Bowl.
So definitely pre 2012. So looking back a little bit, I don't think Brady's MVPs coincide with Super Bowl wins. My guess would be Peyton.
If you remember me mentioning this somewhat in our last episode when we did the Super Bowl preview, not Thursday's trade deadline one, but I had mentioned that MVPs are 0-9 since 2000.
Since 2000. Okay. So 2000, the 2000 season.
I guess that's actually a little tricky. It was technically
It
the
was before that. It was
99
before that.
season,
Kurt
but
Warner.
it was Kurt Warner. So I kind of gave it away a little bit, but
Yeah. Well,
I
I
just saw
tripped
you go
myself up
not going
there.
far enough back, so I
Yeah.
figured I'd toss
So
you a
Kurt
bone there.
Warner was the last one. Okay.
He was the last one in 99. And there were
So there's 11
four
total.
yes, and four others did it in the 90s. So I'll let you try and see if you can guess those, or if you have some kind of
Emmett Smith.
random one. Emmett Smith did it in 93.
Um, Brett Favre.
Brett
I
Favre in
think
96.
John Elway.
John Elway is not on the list.
Okay, I don't think he won MVP
No, not
that
the
late
year
in
that
his that
they
late in
beat
his
the
career.
Falcons. Yeah.
Let's see. Troy would have never won one.
One more quarterback, and
Steve
then
Young.
Steve Young in 94. And the other one in the 90s is a running back,
Running back. Oh, Terrell Davis.
Terrell Davis, and 98 for the Broncos. And then I'm going to go ahead and just give you the other ones, even though you might get them. But Joe Montana in 89, Lawrence Taylor in 86.
Defensive
Uh,
MVP.
yep. Mark Mosley, 1982.
Wouldn't have gotten that one.
Terry Bradshaw in 78.
Okay.
And
Wow,
Bart Starr. And
I didn't realize he won an MVP award.
I
Like
guess I didn't either, to be honest.
a season long MVP. I would have guessed Super Bowl MVP, but not. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
And you said Staubach,
And then no, not Staubach, Bart Starr in
Bart Starr.
'66. Yep.
Okay,
So those are the 11. Well, Patrick Mahomes is now the
number
11th.
12 or the 11th.
No,
Okay.
he's number 11. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's insane. I mean,
He's on the path, man. He really is. He's on the
I,
path to challenge Brady for best ever.
I'll put it this way, yeah, because he's on the path to have a Hall of Fame career in his 20s, and then he
Mhm.
could have a Hall of Fame career in his 30s, and then maybe a Hall of Fame career in his 40s. Because he's definitely on the path, dude. I mean, he's been a starter for 5 seasons. His first year as a starter, MVP.
Which is
They
tough.
make, yeah, like you can't even make that up. And then correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong on this one. I didn't actually write this down. So the first year, that was when they lost to New England in the AFC Championship game, right?
I think so.
And then year three, technically year three, his second year as the starter was when they beat San Francisco in the Super Bowl. And then last year they didn't, or then they lost to Tom Brady on the Bucks in the Super Bowl. And then last year they lost to the Bengals, and yeah, that's right. I got it right. And then now this year
Yeah.
they won it. So first season he is MVP of the league. He plays against our the GOAT, Tom Brady, in the AFC Championship game, hosting it in Kansas City, and loses because it goes to overtime and he's not even able to get his hands on the ball.
Yeah. And
That
scores 30. Scores over 30 in
yeah.
that game
Yeah,
too.
no, hell of a game. Like one of the best games in NFL history. Like that was a great game. A lot of people did actually say back then nobody knew Brady would still be playing at this point. Um, Back then, people were saying that was possibly the passing of the torch.
Yeah.
Um, and then his second year as the starter, year three technically for him, he wins the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then year four goes to the Super Bowl and loses against that same motherfucker, Tom Brady, even though he changed teams now.
Yeah. And
And
that was really the Buccaneers defense that just
it
destroyed
was,
the Chiefs offensive line.
well, the offensive line that was a Frankenstein offensive line. They literally had none of their starters from the beginning of
Hmm.
the season. So that's really what I mean. Real football people will tell you games are won in the trenches,
Absolutely.
on the line of scrimmage. That's how games are won and lost.
Yeah.
Unless you do have a guy like
If
Tom Brady who gets the ball off faster than
if
anybody, then you can get away with it sometimes.
if you can't block, you can't win. You can't do anything if you can't block.
That's why I don't know if you've noticed, but like something that I need to look more into it because I don't have any numbers on it or anything right now, but just thinking about it, so many of the great teams, Brady, what did he have? Gronk, great tight end. He could also block. What does Patrick Mahomes have right now? Travis Kelsey, great
Great
tight
tight
end,
end.
can also block. So like there is a recipe. So like that's kind of crazy. But so then last year they get to the AFC Championship game and just lose to a super hot Bengals team and another thriller, which is also one of the best games, and just one of the great upcoming teams in Cincinnati that I think they're going to have to worry about for a while because they're going to be
Yeah.
battling. Um, and then wait a second, I got that wrong, don't I?
Which part?
Didn't Did Kansas City lose to Buffalo last year in the playoffs, or was it
No.
Cincinnati? It
No,
was
it was
Cincinnati, the
Cincinnati.
AFC Championship. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
No, because that's right. Because this is building to my main point. So then this year they host the AFC Championship game again against a great team, beat them, and then win the Super Bowl. In all of that time, he's been a starter for 5 seasons. Has not been in a away playoff team. They have
Wow.
not gone on the road in the playoffs one time.
I feel like that first run.
Nope.
They,
They hosted the AFC Championship game. They hosted every game,
yeah,
every
you're right.
playoff
They've won at
game
least.
in Patrick Mahomes' career he has hosted.
He's never not won 12 games or more.
That's insane. Now we do have to give credit to Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Because Andy Reid is absolutely insane. And they just have fun. Like like the way that they come up with plays, you've seen some kind of like behind the scenes and stuff because they were in the Super Bowl, so you got a lot of media attention over the last couple of weeks, and you got to see some behind the scenes. The way they come up with plays, it's just fun. So I'm not surprised to see how well they're doing. And
Yeah. I
but
mean, they've got a coach that is willing to go on commercials where he's drawing mustaches on people.
Maybe, dude, that was it. That's what they needed to do. Maybe we need to get Mike McCarthy on a commercial.
I don't know if anybody wants to see Mike McCarthy on a commercial.
Fair enough. But no, so that was my main point though, was even though they lost to Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game that first year, they lost to him in the Super Bowl. Then they lost to Cincinnati hosting the AFC Championship again last year. They have never been on the road in the playoffs in Patrick Mahomes' career. Now, technically, yes, the Super Bowl is not a home game for them, but they're not on the road because the other team is in a home game. It's a neutral site.
Yeah.
So that doesn't technically count.
Like Mahomes and the Chiefs, like there are a couple of bounces and an offensive line not being obliterated from 5 straight.
I mean, yeah, but they're also a few bounces away from not winning any of them. So it's a game of inches. It's a game of bounces. I mean, that's it's just kind of how it goes. But it's bouncing the right way for them. So he does win MVP again. He's, like you said, 2-time Super Bowl MVP, 2-time MVP now, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first team All Pro, 1-time second team All Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champ. I mean, dude.
And unquestionably the best quarterback in the NFL now. If anybody still had questions, I hadn't had questions, but if anybody still had questions,
it can't really be argued right now. I did have some arguments during the season this year, just because Joe Burrow, if they were able to beat Mahomes this year, that would have gone very, very far for him, but they didn't. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems like it's Mahomes and then like Burrow, Allen, Herbert, maybe.
I don't know if I'd put Herbert there yet.
Herbert was kind of in that discussion, but then he kind of had a little bit of a down year. Not necessarily a down year, but not as good of he lost a lot of weapons. He didn't
as a
have
quarterback,
as
you gotta have some kind of playoff success, and he hasn't had any yet. Whereas
I don't know if that was necessarily all on him.
Allen's at least won some playoff games.
True.
So
big ones too. Yeah.
That's why I can't put Herbert up there yet. Jalen Hurts could be on his way if this season isn't a one-hit wonder kind of situation.
We'll see. I don't think so, to be honest. As much as I don't like the Eagles and as much as I don't like Sirianni, they've definitely got a really good football team. They showed, I saw a thing that showed like all the offensive and defensive starters for both teams in the Super Bowl, where they got them, whether it was in the draft or like from a different team. Philly's offense was like all drafted besides like AJ Brown.
Right.
So like, but then Kansas City's all defense was all drafted besides like 2 guys. But then both of the other ones were all free agents and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
and that KC defense is really young too. Like they're probably going to be getting better.